Hello, BookTube. This is Alan here for Friday Reads. But first, I wanted to tell you that the gym where I go to is open. So I went there this past Thursday and Friday and worked out. You have to wear a mask, and there's a lot of sanitation there by the workstations, the benches where you have to spray and wipe down the machines. It's hand sanitizers. You have to wear a mask when you go in. Cannot use the restroom while you're there. But after working out for the first time Thursday and Friday, my arms were sore for like 4 days because I hadn't worked out in about 3 months. Well, since February, I think it was when they closed the gym. And also, there this past Tuesday, I was standing by the rail station by a quarter to 10 at night, and then get off work and wait for the train. And there's, they have the beautification of different places, like the train station, and they have trees there. They plant trees, and they have the trees, and they have these grates that go around the tree, because so people won't fall into the hole. And even though there's a hole there for the tree to grow, and I was standing on one of those grates Tuesday night, and I looked, and I just happened to look down, and a skunk went past my feet and went into that hole. And the next night, I told the security guard who was over that particular station about it. And while I was talking with him, a rat just ran right by the on the concrete into one of the holes where the tree is. And he said that, yeah, there's a lot of people who just drop food anywhere. I mean, they could be just leaning on the trash can and just drop the food onto the concrete instead of just throwing it in the trash can, and it attracts rats. And there's one station further down from where I caught this one, about like two stops down, that caught like they have. He said there were 15 to 20 rats at that one station. You don't want to fall asleep. One of the problems I have with doing Friday reads is that the majority of what I read is on my what's called a pocketbook reader, where I got it's on my phone, which I'm using to do this video on, and pocketbook reader came from the Google Play Store, and I don't have any technology to actually show you the physical copy of the book. Don't have it said, okay, I'll put it right here, or put it right here when I'm talking about the book. And it's very difficult to do, and so it's a Friday reads, and so it's very hard to do that. I don't have a computer, I don't have a Chromebook, I don't have a an e-reader itself. I may get an e-reader probably a month from now or 2 months from now, but I just don't have one. And NetGalley has I requested some books, and they requested a lot of books this year, beginning of this year. I just kept requesting because, from May, May up until the end of the year, I have a book that I have to read at the end of this. It comes out at the end of this year in December. It's called Wild Minds. It's about the comic industry, the very early stages, 1920s. And excuse me. So, and a lot of times, NetGalley was send me an email saying, "Oh, you want to read this book? You don't have to request it." Publisher just just sent us, say, hey, we need 1,000 people to review this book. And you don't have to request it and get the publisher's okay or not okay for you to request, for you to review it. And so you basically just get the book and you're reviewing it. And that book currently, that book is called Murder in Old Bombay. And it's about the guy who is, it's a Sherlock Holmes, is it not? In the, he's reading the Sherlock Holmes book, Silent Four. And he is not doing anything. He was a cavalry officer in India, with the British, and two women have fallen from a clock tower to their death. one, and then another one. So there was a trial, but the trial couldn't find enough evidence to convict anybody. And the husband of one of the women who died comes to this guy who is like a former cavalry officer, and he's not doing anything, and says, "Oh, you want to? I'll give you some money to figure out who did this, who killed my wife." So he takes it on, and that's by Nev March. I guess it's the first book, and so far it's not going too well because it's told in first person, and the story is kind of repeats. He's like investigating something, and then all of a sudden he gets beaten up, and then he investigates something else, he gets beaten up again, and it kind of drags. It's dragging. I did finish a book called Political Godmother, and this is from NetGalley. I do have one called Book Scribes, which I'll point out in a minute. Political Godmother is Nancy Scripps Loeb in the newspaper that shook the Republican Party. This is by Meg Heckman, and this was supposed to be published the 1st of June by University of Nebraska Press. Nackety, and she calls Nancy Scripps Loeb Nacky all the time because that was a nickname that was given to her. Those of you that don't know who Nacky Scripps Loeb is, you're not running for president or anything else in the Republican Party. Those who are, or the Democratic Party for that matter, because Nancy Scripps Loeb, her grandfather was E.W. Forster. I believe that's correct. E.W. Forster was one of the three main newspaper magnates during that era, and the other two are William Randolph Hearst, and the other one is Joseph Pulitzer. This gentleman started C.W. Forster started a wire service to get the news quicker from out of the country to the United States. So then her father was a newspaper publisher, and then her father passed away, and she married a guy who was a closet homosexual, who is listed in the book. Let's have it here. It's called excuse me, The Gay Metropolis, and the guy's name was Gallowhur. Gallowhur is Gallowhur, and so she married him. She didn't want to go into publishing, but she met a guy by the name of William Loeb, who was married to his second wife at the time. And William Loeb was a publisher, and he owned a couple of newspapers. And one of those newspapers was the Manchester Union Ledger. Let me see if I got that name right. Yeah. Yeah, the Manchester Union Ledger. And the Manchester, New Hampshire. And Manchester, New Hampshire has been the first of the nation primary since 1917. And he was extremely conservative. A very conservative, extreme right-wing Republican. He would call people like Dwight Eisenhower, even though Eisenhower was a Republican, he would call him Doopy Dwight. And he would make up names for people he didn't like. Rockefeller, when Nelson Rockefeller ran for president, he called him a wife swapper. Even though William Loeb finally married Nancy, or Nackety Scripps, became Nackety Scripps Loeb, he called, that was his third wife. And somebody pointed out the fact that, wait a minute, you're calling Nelson Rockefeller a wife swapper, but here you are married 3 times. He said, yeah, but I'm not running for political office. They, the author, Meg Heckman, does an excellent job. And let me point out one thing. It's a biography, and the biography is only 150 pages. That's it. It's only 150 pages. And so they attack any Democrats that come up there. The Democrats despise them, and the Republicans feared them. Once Nackety Scripps Loeb had a meeting with Ronald Reagan, and let me back up. They got involved in a car wreck. William Loeb and Nackety Loeb. And in the car wreck, Nancy Scripps Loeb was paralyzed from the chest down. So she could not function on her own. And then William Loeb died. So William Loeb died, and the Boston Globe said, well, that's the end of conservatism or conservative paper. Well, it wasn't, because Nancy Scripps Loeb turned out to be just as vicious in the paper as her husband, William Loeb, when she took over and became editor and publisher of the Manchester Union Ledger. Ledger. Got it right. So let me go back to the Reagan story, because she had a problem with Reagan. Reagan wasn't conservative. Well, her brand of conservative. So she met up at a meeting with President Reagan, and she was well past the metal detectors, and went into the room to have a talk with Reagan to point out what he was doing wrong conservatively. When she came out of the meeting, she got into a car, got a gun out of her purse, handed it to the guy, to her driver, and said, right here, I don't need this anymore. And she was very, and she hated President George Herbert Walker Bush. Didn't like him at all, in fact. And the author points out that when a person runs for president, when a newly elected person is given his speech, that when he wins the presidency, that's when the people who are going to run for president in 4 years start making their move. So she wanted Pat Buchanan to run for president in 92 against the current incumbent president, George Herbert Walker Bush, because she hated him. She despised him. And of course, you probably know back in history about the Chinook letter, in which It was actually written by someone on the Nixon campaign and accused one of the Democratic candidates of calling the French Canucks a derogatory term. So that's one of the books I've finished. The other book I finished is a book called Those Who Hunger by Owen Banner. And this is on something called Bookscribe. Bookscribe is entirely different than NetGalley. They'll send you the books, ebook or physical book. But because of this pandemic we're in, they didn't send me any physical copies. They just sent me an ebook. And so I was kind of hesitant about reading this book. It's Owen Banner, Those Who Hunger. And it's a story, takes place in the Amish community in Pennsylvania. And you have the main character named Hadassah. And you have the she has mother is named Esther. And Esther has, sorry about that. Esther is a vampire. And people in the Amish community know that she's a vampire. Meaning the fact that the people in the Amish community believe that the sins of Cain, when Cain slew Abel, and then God punished Cain. Cain said, well, I can't, somebody will hunt me down and kill me. Okay, I'll put a mark on you. So the Amish believe that mark is actually will turn you into a vampire. So that's what they believe. And so Esther has a mark. So Hadassah is going to the store, going to town, and going to the store and wears a white cap because the Amish people wear a white cap. That means you're married. So she is is attacked by this teenager who's drunk, and it's basically an assault and an attempted rape. But Hadassah kills him, and she is now a vampire. But she doesn't tell anybody. Her younger sister, Mary, who's only 4 years old, is seen eating a cow. And so she becomes a vampire. She has a mark. Peter, the brother of Hadassah, the son of Esther, is frightened of Mary, and in one part says, "Oh, she'll kill us all." Nehemiah is the husband of Esther and is not a vampire, and so he goes along, and they took. In fact, when they were, it says in the book, when they were dating, when they were going to court her, when Nehemiah wanted to court Esther, they said, Father said, "Watch out, she already bit my finger off." She said, "No, I don't care. I love her." And so you have two FBI agents show up. The main one is named Jake, who is knows about the Amish people because he knows about their songs, their sermons, and the way of life because he used to be one and himself. He grew up in that one. And then Nathaniel, so he's investigating the murders that have taken place, and more than one. There's a couple of them. And it turns out to be another one, too. And there's some attacks on the Amish community. So Hadassah is sent to Chicago with some friends, Amish people, to find the brother Nathaniel because they believe that Nathaniel was behind these murders. And it turns out that Nathaniel isn't. And Nathaniel was one of the ones who left the Amish community after breaking his father Nehemiah's arm. Just take off. Excuse me. And Owen Banner, the author, puts a lot of a descriptive narrative structurally. He has a lot of there's a lot of fight scenes, so very good. So it's a combination of a thriller and suspense, two genres. When I reviewed the book into my Goodreads page, Owen Banner sent me an email and said how grateful he was and how excellent I did on my review. Now I'll leave a link to my Goodreads page down below. And there were a couple of quotes here that he says, that he points out that in the book, because Nathaniel comes back to the Amish community and his father sees him and runs to him and embraces him. And the rest of the Amish community doesn't have anything to do with Nathaniel because Nathaniel left the community. And, excuse me, here's a good quote from there. Others turn the mirror so you can see the whole of you and find there in some way you are still made in the image of God, no matter how shattered that image might have become. There's a fearful power in that image of God, a power to give life and to take it away, and power to hurt and hate, or a power to love and heal and forgive, a power to choose. There's a booktuber, the new booktuber that I'm going to give a shout out to. Her name is Lexa Reads. I'll leave a link to the channel down below. And she has a couple of videos up. One called Reading Insecurities. Another one is an introduction to Kenyan authors. She is from Kenya. And so I'll leave a link to her channel below. Thank you very much and have a good weekend.